watching CBS 17 Plus.
The Surge, and let me tell you something. These Carolina Hurricanes are in a terrific place right now. 2-0 against the Philadelphia Flyers. Break up the Canes. They have not lost yet in this postseason. Sara, Holland, Kevin Holden. I'm now sitting front and center. I was a little askew there for a second, but we got there. Sara, this is okay. We talked about this before Game 2 when we were live on the air on CBS 17. You were saying the Flyers' plan for Game 2 was to try to drop some sort of bump in the road on the Canes, who had just been smooth sailing for 5 games. Well, they did that. No question about that.
Yeah, I mean, the Canes haven't trailed in the playoffs before Game 2, so I think that just speaks volumes. When you don't trail in the playoffs through 5 games, that's a pretty insane stat. And then obviously they trailed in Game 2 on Monday night. But after those 2 quick goals by the Flyers, they were able to, kind of regroup. I thought that game was a little bit chaotic, but at the end of the day, they regrouped well enough to prove that when they have some adversity thrown their way, they can still come away with the win. Taylor Hall proved that in overtime. So once again, a long night at Lenovo for myself and for Gibby. They love to keep us there after hours. So yeah, it wasn't going to last long. The Canes not being able to go down and have other team. They always keep the lead. That was not a stat that was going to persist. So it just ended up ultimately being in Game 2 of the second round that they finally trailed in a game. But good thing for the Canes, getting that OT winner.
And so here's the thing about this too. They're down 2-0. I'm talking about goal-wise after 5 minutes of this game, and we talked about, okay, now we'll figure out, are they going to get back in this thing? How will they respond? And their response was not your typical, like, okay, right back with 2 goals and it's 2-2 in the first period. It was this slow catch-up, this almost like slow bleed, right? You had Freddie stopping 32 shots in a row after he let those. I think that's right after those 2 goals. And then there's a goal in the first, and then just a grind of a second period, and then a late goal in the third. And this was Canes hockey of a different way.
It was, because I feel like usually when they go down, they find a way to get back in it pretty quickly. But it was very drawn out. And the Flyers were not letting them, have this one. They were not going to make things easy for the Canes. The Flyers played a really good game too. They at times, most of the time, especially in overtime, looked like the better team. But, I think that's what shows you, like, even when they're not playing, when the Canes are not playing their best brand of hockey, they still are able to grind out a win. That's huge in the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, post-game time. Let's hear what they had to say.
To be down 2 and just kind of stick to our game and wait for our opportunities and capitalize, I think that was huge. It speaks a lot to our leaders, to Roddy, just keeping everyone calm and trusting the process.
All right, so the first thing that comes to mind is we've spent 5 games talking about the second line. We have spent all this time talking about, Logan Stankoven, who's been unbelievable and so on. And it was weird to not have him, score 3 goals or whatever in that game. But what you did have was the guys at the very front of the line, basically the first line, Ehlers, Jarvis, both came up with goals. Huge for this team long term, I think.
Huge. I mean, huge might be an understatement, because the floodgates might be open, right, for their top guys to get on the score sheet, right? And at the same time, Rod's been saying, like, the production's not there, but they have been showing up in other ways. But at the end of the day, you need your big guys to score, and especially in a game like that where, it's a little bit more stagnant. So Ehlers and Jarvis scoring their first goals of the playoffs is huge. And moving forward, maybe that'll give them a little bit more confidence to work with going into Philadelphia for Game 3, that, they kind of get that breath of fresh air. They can kind of just release their shoulders from, being hunched, and they got their goals, right? So at the end of the day, they got it done, and now maybe can play a little bit more of a relaxed brand of hockey, at least, to be able to feel a little bit more confident when you're out there on the ice.
They won't show it, but they're relieved.
Yeah.
In this post-game sound. You're not going to be able to tell it, but promise they're relieved.
Going, especially, I've had chances and they haven't been doing it, so to step up in a moment like that was huge. The line shuffling, I mean, seems like every time with Jordo, stuff starts to go in. So hopefully that kickstarts the rest of my playoffs and just keep it rolling.
At that point, it's a 2-0 game, and you wanna get right back, get one right back, and we were able to do that. Now it's 1-goal lead, it's one shot, and it took us until 6 minutes left to get that second one. So obviously, I loved every second of it. It was awesome to get my first in the playoffs at home as well. So I enjoyed that one tonight.
So the thing that happens there that I think helps this team the most long term is that it was Ehlers scoring the first goal and Jarvis scoring the second goal after the very first time that the Canes trailed in the playoffs. In other words, that's when you want your aces, your big guys to step up, and that's exactly what they did. Of course, it didn't hurt that Freddie Andersen gave up 2 goals and then remembered, oh, right, I'm the best goaltender in these playoffs.
We talked about it before Game 2. The stats that Freddie had, it was a less than 1 goals against, so it was 0.9 before Monday's game, 961 save percentage, led all netminders in wins. Obviously, the numbers have changed a bit since then. But when you have a goaltender like Freddie here who is able to make this cross-ice pass to Eric Robinson, who gets a breakaway, obviously doesn't score there, but Freddie was being physical. He was pushing guys around too. Like I think after that, kind of remembered like you said, like, hey, I'm Freddie Andersen, and when you have the crowd screaming your name and chanting your name, and that when you have your home ice advantage and the Caniacs are backing you every step of the way, even when you make a mistake, it's got to feel at least comforting, right? Having that sort of confidence level, from other people around you. So if Freddie keeps playing the way that he's played, I mean, man, I think Carolina could go into Philadelphia for games 3 and 4 and be done with this series.
Conn Smythe knocking at the door,
Him and Logan Stankoven, really. Like it's them two. If Logan can keep it up, but yeah, like two of those guys are right there in the running for that.
It's crazy. And we can talk some about the betting stuff here in a second, but we'll hear from Freddie.
And I think that's just a testament to the type of person he is and the player he is. He's been doing a great job, obviously, this entire playoffs, and you're gonna have a mess up every once in a while, but I think it's just a matter of turning the page and getting back to your game.
In overtime, especially, I thought that we had that one bad shift, and then we took a penalty, and then they had plenty of opportunities to win the game. So he was the difference there. That's where he really, I think, rose to the occasion and enabled us to hang in there and enabled us to get obviously the win.
So a sound about Freddie,
Yeah.
not from Freddie. Freddie's spoken plenty. He's spoken plenty with his play on the ice.
Yeah, he wasn't available after Game 2. So, like you said, we pretty much ask for him after every game. So maybe they were trying to give him a nice little break there.
Knowing that this is going to be a long run
Yeah.
and that he'll have plenty of chances to chat. So here's the thing. And by the way, we are going to be having a special guest here. Lindsey Moppert from PHL 17 will be joining us here in just a couple minutes. But real quick, this may be a mistake or maybe not. And for everyone watching, please be sure to bet responsibly and follow the laws of the state in which you bet. That's my PSA. Yeah. Now I'll tell you, I opened a betting app after that game, and I was like, I just want to see. I didn't place any bets, but I just want to see. And at this moment, the Canes are the favorites to win the Stanley Cup.
I'm not surprised though, right? Because I think they're going to handle Philadelphia, and then it's up to Montreal or Buffalo, whoever wins that series. And I could see both of those teams, being a tough test for the Canes, but not necessarily being a team that kicks them out, right? Like, you don't have the Florida Panthers anymore to stop you, to be that, that team that's like, I don't know, can the Canes finally get it done? Can they finally get past, Matthew Tkachuk and the list of endless superstars in that team and to make it to the Cup final? I think this is the year that, we might be making some trips to the West Coast, hopefully.
I mean, it is through 6 games. It's incredible. It's an incredible ride. And Canes playoff hockey is usually an incredible ride, but this is just different somehow. Like the leads in the 5 games and how they bounce back in this game, I can see why, Vegas thinks this is going to be the case. And what brought it to mind was, you mentioned Freddie, you mentioned Logan Stankoven. I think they're 2 of the top 4 for the Conn Smythe in terms of betting odds right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised given the way that they've performed. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even watching Logan Stankoven, like last night, I would see him get the puck. They would pass him, pass the puck to him. I think once a power play, which we'll talk a little bit about later in the show. But it just hasn't been working lately. But we see, Rod kind of mix up the power play units, and he sends Logan Stankoven out on the first one. And, every time he touches the puck, I'm like, well, is he going to score? Like, is this going to be another extending the point streak on and on and on? But, yeah, great postseason so far from both Freddie and from Logan.
Here to bring us out of the clouds and back into reality will be Lindsey Moppert from PHL 17 in Philadelphia. She's going to give us a bit of a Flyers perspective. Maybe she'll tell us Pat's or Gino's, maybe Tony Luke's, what her favorite cheesesteak is. We'll get to the bottom of things after the break here on The Surge. Well, as much as we would love to play every single game of this series in Raleigh, that would be fantastic. That's not how the playoffs work. The scene shifts to Philadelphia. Game 3 Thursday, Game 4 Saturday, and Lindsey Moppert from PHL 17 in Philadelphia joins us. Lindsey, look, we could talk a lot of hockey. I'm probably going to ask you for advice on cheesesteaks and things like that because I'm going to get to Philadelphia at some point. So, maybe we can do the cheesesteak stuff later, but we really appreciate you joining us.
Of course, I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
So, Lindsey, I guess let's just get right into it to talk about the hockey game. Obviously, Game 2 Monday night. The Flyers looked like the better team, right, at some points, but ultimately Taylor Hall secures the overtime winner for the Canes. They go up 2-0 in the series. What is your confidence level right now in this young Flyers group?
Yeah, Sara, I think the real question there, regardless of my confidence level at this point, I do think that Game 3 is going to be really the deciding factor, at least in my mind. But I'll tell you this, there is something dangerous about a Flyers team that has the mentality and I guess the mindset that they've been having all along, really all season and now into the playoffs. They've got this underdog mentality, right? This is sort of the Philly sports way. They love to be the underdog. They're sort of playing with that chip on their shoulder. And something that we've heard over and over again from players is that they've always had belief, regardless whether or not, the media has had belief, fans have had belief, people on the outside. They made T-shirts because there was a 3.8% chance. Those were the odds heading into the regular season that they would make the playoffs this year. They love that. They made T-shirts that say that, okay? So when it comes to confidence level, the team is confident. They know that, in that first series with the Penguins, they sort of saw everything. They went up a couple games, then they sort of got taken back and had to finish it off there at home. So they've sort of already seen adversity, and they have belief, always have had belief, and nothing has changed at this point.
What we saw in Game 2, at least in those first 5 minutes, was a rejuvenation from a team that was, it was struggling, was frustrated in that first game, but they came out and just hit right away with those 2 goals in Game 2. How do they take something like that back to Philadelphia, and what do they need to do there to ensure that 2-goal lead holds up?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And honestly, it's not that I think anyone was really shocked, because I think that's sort of a message, right off the top. Like, that first game is not who we are, and we want to make sure that is kind of known across the board. I do think in terms of momentum building and holding certainly a lead like that post-game last night, talking to some of the players, they mentioned how, we didn't play the regulation game that we really wanted to, but our game showed in overtime. And I think a lot of people are talking about that as well. I mean, 1 goal difference, and we're talking about going back to South Philly with a 1-1 series, completely different, right? So I think, it's hard to say necessarily what needs to be done to to maintain that 2-goal lead. But I think too, we saw in overtime just a lot of the pressuring and pushing and the aggressiveness and the quickness from the Flyers. So I'd say probably those are some of their key points in what they need to upkeep to have a good game 3.
Lindsey, this is such a young group, and we've talked about this, this young Flyers team, and, they're going up against a veteran team in Carolina. What do you think that their head coach, Rick, what kind of, what is he instilling in this young group that's allowed them to get to this point where they are? I heard him, talk after game 2, and he was very adamant that, he thought that his team played a really good game. And obviously, you don't come out and get the win, but he seems to be extremely confident in this group.
Yeah, I think he really knows how to read the locker room. And that, again, what I was talking about, the belief in the locker room really kind of starts with him as well. Backing your team up like that, saying, to your own media as well, kind of saying, no, actually, I think we played a great game. And backing them up in that way, I think says a lot. I personally enjoy his messaging in terms of, backing them up in that way, because a game like that can be a little demoralizing, right? You're down 2, you're coming back, especially against a veteran team like the Hurricanes, which a lot of people think that the Canes can be a top contender for, to go to the Stanley Cup. So could be a demoralizing loss, and they could just go downhill from here, but he's backing his team. He's always done that. And I think that's a huge reason why they have the sense of belief that they have. Like the quote that he said last night, which was amazing, and I know it's going like semi-viral, was, we've been dead before and we climbed out of the grave. That is awesome. Like that lights a fire under me to go out there. So I can't imagine what that's doing for his locker room. And I think that's just a snippet into his coaching style and his leadership.
So here in Raleigh, Lindsey, we call it the loudest house in the NHL. There's definitely a certain experience to being at Lenovo Center and catching a Canes game, a playoff game. There is no doubt that it is a wild atmosphere as well in Philadelphia. Passionate fans, big interest, focus in the game. What is that home ice experience like?
I can't even begin to tell you. Philly fans rock. I will say that. I am Philly born and raised, so I know that. I know the experience. But yeah, people are just so bought in. They are. And you know what? More than anything, I will say as well is it's exciting for the future of the franchise, because I think for a long time it was, the Flyers were sort of in this rebuilding era. And again, 3.8% chance of them to make it into the playoffs. Not only do they make it, and it's this good story, but you start their run off against, a rival in the Pittsburgh Penguins. So fans are absolutely just riled up, and they're excited, and it is very, very loud. I will tell you, I have headaches for hours after I leave. I typically can't go to sleep because my head is banging. But that's just, that's a testament to them, and it's always a good time.
It is the only place in my career where I've been heckled as a visiting media member.
Really?
Yeah. Phillies in the World Series in 2008.
I'm not surprised. I
can't say I'm surprised. I don't always claim the behavior. Some of that's questionable, but I think even the athletes, when they speak on the atmosphere and they're like, this is something I've never seen before, they can also appreciate something special about the Philly fan base is they're going to be real with you. They always will be. You give them something to cheer about, something to be excited for, and they will make you feel loved.
Yeah, I mean, it was good nature, right? I was, he was, being direct, and it was fine. It's, it's all good. I felt like I got the Philly experience doing that, which was really cool. But it was also a very fun experience and a terrific sports town. I know it gets a reputation outside. It's a fun place. Lindsey Moppert, PHL 17. Lindsey, we really appreciate it. Enjoy games 3 and 4. We're going to be watching from back here. Can't wait to see what comes out of this.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Back with more of the Surge coming up right after this. The Canes feel unstoppable. We will see if they really are when they go to Philadelphia Thursday Game 3, Saturday Game 4 of this second-round playoff series. 2 wins from the Eastern Conference Final. Sara, Holland, Kevin Holden here on The Surge. All right, Sara, so there comes a point where we just have to make the decision. We're going to have to talk about something that isn't going right because so much is going right for this Canes team, but they would like a little more out of the power play.
They would like a lot more out of the power play because it's been abysmal really since the first round.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ottawa struggled with their power play. The Flyers have struggled with their power play. But like the Canes would be unstoppable if they could just score on the power play. It's been kind of frustrating just, every time. And in game 2, I don't remember the amount of total penalties, but in the second period, I believe it was up to 10, or the third period is up to 10. And it's disruptive, right? You're not playing 5-on-5. You're going from one team is shorthanded to the next team is shorthanded. And it's kind of hard to get in a groove a little bit. But yeah, those power play, the power play has just been not fun to watch. And if, as you move deeper and deeper into the playoffs, that's something that really, it needs to start clicking. So I'm sure that's something that the Canes will be focusing on a lot. They were off Tuesday from practice, so I'm sure Wednesday they will be focusing on that. I can assure you, Rod will have them run those power play units pretty heavily.
Am I right in saying that an effective power play stops the other team from being overly physical, right? Like you force the other team to try not to commit penalties. Like they will be a little more fearful of penalties if you are so strong on the power play that they know if they're down a man, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah.
Because just think about it. Like if hey, this team always scores when they're on the power play, we cannot give them chances. So yeah, you might want to make sure you're playing a little bit cleaner and you're not taking those chances that could get called potentially. So yeah, 100%. I think that's exactly right.
What do you expect out of Game 3, other than a whole lot of loud fans?
I said the same thing when the Canes were going to Ottawa, that I expected Ottawa to win Game 3. I think we both kind of agreed on that. Yeah. I think the Flyers will play tough, but I just don't know if I see them beating this Canes team. Like after game 2, and I would have said maybe again, like it's kind of like very similar storylines, right? Because it was game 2, Monday night, Ottawa, they went to double overtime. And I was like, they could probably escape with a win. They looked like the better team at times. Now I'm like, okay, this one goes to overtime. It's a Monday night game 2, but against the Flyers, they're going to, on the road for game 3. I don't know. I just, I think if Freddie plays the way that he continues to do, and I think, again, Seth Jarvis scoring and Ehlers scoring kind of may open these floodgates for these top guys to, be, have an impact on the offense night in and night out. So I just don't know if the Flyers are going to be able to handle, the Canes.
Yeah, this is shaping up to be an exact repeat of Ottawa for me.
Yeah.
That game 2, it was double overtime in that first series, single overtime in this one. Then they go on the road and make the statement in game 3. I am fully expecting a statement from the Canes in Game 3 of this series, no doubt about it. And, of course, we'll talk about it right here on The Surge. Sara, Holland, Kevin Holden, we appreciate you watching. We will be here for the duration. And I got to tell you, we're clearing the schedule through late June because of what we're seeing so far here from this Canes team.